Hello and welcome. This is Angie with thecountrysheetcottage.net. So today we're going to cut leather with both the Cricut Explore as well as the Cricut Maker. Talk about the pros and cons with different types of leather and how to cut each type with the machine that you have. So let's jump in, Cricut leather, and get started cutting on our machine. So first let's talk about the type of leather we're going to cut. So this is the Cricut Genuine Leather. So it's recommended for the Explore or the Cricut Maker, so we're going to be trying to cut this on both. So I have a piece here that I've already done some projects with, so I'm going to try to cut it. And then I'm also going to try, this is just a piece of leather from the craft store, so they sell like leather scraps at Hobby Lobby. I'm going to try to cut it as well. And I'll try to cut it on both the machines, but I'm pretty sure it might only work with the Maker, so we'll see if it works on both or not. Next step is adding the leather to your mat. So this is a strong grip mat, and you'll need like a really good strong grip mat. And then we're going to put the leather face down. So what that means is that anytime you put material face down on your mat, you will need to mirror your cut if it matters at all the direction of the cut itself. So the good side will be against the mat. And then what I recommend is a brayer. And bray it down really, really well. So each little piece of this leather needs to be stuck to that mat so it does not move around while it cuts. Now, you can play around with putting the rough side against your mat. It will ruin your mat, first of all, very, very quickly. But you have to do that if you want to like emboss or something like that. So what I've done is put transfer tape over this rough part and then put the transfer tape against the mat, so that my good side was up. So if I wanted to emboss or engrave the leather, that's what I would do. Alright, so now let's head first to the Explorer, and we'll talk about how to cut leather with the Explorer, and then we'll move on to the Maker. I have my dial set to custom, and then I picked leather from the menu in Cricut Design Space, and it asked me for the deep point blade, so I'm adding the deep point blade to the blade side of my Cricut machine. And then I've mirrored the cuts as well so that the good side will be face down, and then we can just put the leather in. You might want to actually move your star wheels all the way over just to eject the mat, and then just pull the star wheels over to one side. So what this does is just ensure that they will not actually mar the surface of your leather. With the leather face down, you really shouldn't get any marring anyway, but that ensures that your leather is not damaged during the cut. Now you will notice that the star wheels will run over this very edge portion over here. So now our Explorer is done cutting and we can eject the mat. So let's see just how well that deep point blade cut leather. So you can see I just made some heart earrings with a couple different sizes of hearts, and the leather cut perfectly. Now this is the Cricut brand of genuine leather, so let's put the leather I bought from Hobby Lobby onto this mat and see if it cuts just as well. So I've added the leather I got from Hobby Lobby to the mat. Now I did tape around this edge. I was a little worried about how well it stuck to the mat. It didn't seem to stick as well. Again, it's face down and I have my cut mirrored. And we have the deep point blade in still. And I'm still going to leave it on the genuine leather setting, which is what I use for the Cricut leather. Now if you'll note, I did get some lifting as it was cutting, so it wasn't stuck down on the mat as well. And so I don't expect the cuts to be as great, but they're actually not bad. I just had to pull it a little from the side. And I might have to finish this cut with my craft knife. And same on this one. So the cuts are not bad. You might have to finish some of the cuts with your craft knife. And this one moved a little bit more than this one, so it actually is not cut all the way through on this in this area right here. So the Cricut Genuine Leather definitely cuts better if you only have the Explorer, or if you're gonna cut leather with your Explorer. I would highly recommend the Cricut Genuine Leather and not just leather you pick up from the craft store. So with the Cricut Maker, you can cut with the deep point blade just like the Explorer, and it will cut in a similar manner. But we have two other blades we can try. So this is the Rotary Blade first of all, and I'm going to try that. First we're going to cut the leather from Cricut using the Rotary Blade. Once again, we're going to move these white star wheels over just so they don't mar our leather. Now to cut leather with the Rotary Blade, you actually have to trick the machine. So what I picked was a heavy denim setting, and then I used that to actually trick it into cutting the leather with the Rotary Blade. Now, the cuts are not perfect. The cut is there, but it probably needed a double pass. So if you're going to cut genuine leather, the Cricut brand, with your Rotary Blade, I would say allow it to do the first pass and then click the C again, and then allow it to do a second pass, because as you can see it's kind of stuck in there and hasn't exactly cut all the way through, just almost. Now if you're using your Maker, there's all kinds of other leather types that you can cut right in Cricut Design Space. One of those is garment leather, and when you say you're cutting garment leather, you actually choose the knife blade. So we're going to actually use the knife blade on both the Cricut genuine leather as well as the leather that we tried to cut from Hobby Lobby on the Explorer. So these are the knife blade cuts once it's complete, and as you can see it cuts the leather really, really well. So similar to the fine point blade, but let's put it to the test and let's put the leather we got from Hobby Lobby that the deep point blade would not cut, and let's see if this knife blade will cut it instead of what happened with the Explorer, which was that the deep point blade didn't cut it at all. So I'm using the thicker of the two garment leather settings. My wheels are moved over and the knife blade's already in. I take the leather a little bit around the edges and braid it down really well. So I've actually paused this cut and I'm going to cancel it by hitting the arrow to remove. So this was moving around so much on the mat itself that it was starting to make just a huge mess. So yes, the knife blade will cut the leather, as you can see here. So here's one piece that's cut and looks really good, but it moves around so much that your cuts are incomplete, and then sometimes it can make a mess. So what I would recommend is using a brand new purple mat if you're going to cut any leather besides Cricut leather, and just putting it down really, really well on the mat and then giving that a try, because it does actually can move on you quite a bit. Alright, let's summarize everything we've learned. So first of all, Cricut genuine leather cuts best. I mean, it's basically made to cut in your Cricut machine, so I fully expected that to happen. With the Cricut Explorer, I would only recommend cutting the Cricut leather itself. It cuts perfectly with the deep cut blade, and I would expect the same results on the Cricut Maker if you just wanted to use the deep cut blade. Now the other leather, I had quite a bit of problems with it moving around, and it did not cut completely through with the deep cut blade. So be aware of that. You could actually cut it, I think you could kind of finish it with a craft knife, but it would be like fairly imprecise. So I would definitely recommend the genuine leather only for the Explorer series of machines. Now moving on to the Cricut Maker, you can absolutely use the deep cut blade just like we did on the Explorer, or you can grab your Rotary Blade and the genuine leather itself and you can cut it with that, or you can cut it with the knife blade and do a pretty good job with that as well. So the Rotary Blade, what I had trouble with is it needed another pass. So I think if you did another pass, the problem I always have with the Rotary Blade is that it goes slightly past where I want it to cut, and with leather it's really super obvious. So I'm not wild about the Rotary Blade on leather. I would rather use either the deep cut or the knife blade to get my cuts, and that would be for the Cricut genuine leather. For regular leather, if you wanted to buy it from the craft store, I would definitely recommend a brand new purple mat. Braid it down really, really well and try your cuts that way. And don't do anything too intricate or I don't think it would work. And use the knife blade. And I used the garment setting, the thickest one is what I used. I've also cut like tooling leather and things like that with it. So you can definitely make the cuts work. It just takes a little bit of trial and error as to what the mat itself and getting it really good and down on the mat. I mean, the leather piece itself doesn't move, but as the pieces come loose from as they get cut, they start moving and then the inside doesn't cut, like in this instance. So I hope you learned a little something about cutting leather with your Cricut machine, and I hope it gives you some insight when you start your own leather projects. If you love this video, give us a thumbs up. If you have any questions about anything we've done today, drop those in the comment section below. If you haven't already, head on over to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, scroll back to past videos. We also have a video on cutting faux leather, and I will drop a link for that in the description below. And you can also find that on our YouTube channel. That might be an alternate for you that are thinking, this is way too much work to cut this leather. Faux leather is a great alternate that cuts amazingly on a Cricut. So thank y'all so much for joining me today, and I will see you next week with another great Cricut video. Thanks y'all. Bye-bye.